This is Bladerunner from XM Satellite Radio calling for Leon Russell.
Well, I'm speaking to you.
How are you?
Pretty good.
Good. I wasn't sure if this was a direct line straight to you or to who, so.
Yeah, this is me.
Where are you at right now?
I'm at Fuddruckers waiting on my supper.
Oh, okay. Well, do you have a chance to talk, or would you like me to call you back?
No, this is fine.
Oh, okay.
So this is criminal radio, huh?
Criminal radio, yeah. Actually, I do a Outlaw show.
Oh,
I'm
great.
playing all of the Hank Wilson stuff, as a matter of fact. And that's why I was calling you, because I do the show. It's an hour long, and I'll send you a copy of it just so you can kind of see what it's all about. But the basis of it's all about the pure outlaw country, the Waylon Willie type stuff, and then I do like the early outlaws like Johnny Cash, or the original ones like Johnny Cash and Hank Williams Sr., and then the lesser known ones like the Hank Wilson stuff and Jerry Jeff Walker, that kind of thing, and then I do like the new outlaws like Dwight Yoakam and Steve Earle and bands like that.
I see.
So it's pretty cool. But I just wanted to talk to you about more like the Hank Wilson type stuff. What brought that whole thing on for you?
Well, actually, I was bringing a car back from California to Oklahoma, and I had occasion to go into truck stops and get gas, and I noticed that they had these stacks and stacks of country cassettes. So I got some of them, listened to them. I got to thinking about Nashville, being in the studios out in Los Angeles. I'd heard all that time about those guys, how ready they were to make records. The singers could just walk in and those guys would knock out an arrangement in 5 minutes. And so I thought, that's what I want to do that. I want to experience that. So I got a bunch of those old tapes and picked out the songs. I actually played in some country bands out in Los Angeles, not in Oklahoma, oddly enough, when I was a kid, but in California I played in a lot of country bands. So the songs that I knew, not that I'd ever sung before, but I knew, and I just thought I'd make some old songs, make the radio sound the way it did before Elvis came along.
What are some of your favorite country songs that you covered? I mean, obviously the ones that you covered would be, but what are the more favorite ones are the ones that you covered?
I don't know. It's hard to say one over the other. I always liked the first one I did in that series was Family Bible. So Willie Nelson song, and that was the first song I cut in the series, and they were all very polite, and they were playing real polite. They kind of whipped those guys pretty hard down there in Nashville. And so I said, well, that's good. I took the first take, and I said, well, that's it. And they all kind of looked around and said, wait a minute, there was only one take. I said, it sounded good. Did it something I missed? And they said, no. So I said, that's a little bit polite. The next one's going to be a beer joint song. Have you ever heard of Kane's Ballroom in Tulsa? And that was Six Pack to Go, a Hank Thompson song. I said it'd be nice if you'd be a little bit more rowdy on this one. So they were ready to make records, as was I.
Yeah, that is odd, being from Oklahoma, that you didn't do more of the country stuff there. You're from Lawton, Oklahoma?
That's where I was born.
Oh, okay.
I actually went there to be born. We were living in a town called Apache, Oklahoma at the time, then moved to Maysville and then to Tulsa.
I just moved out here from Oklahoma City. I spent about 10 years of my radio career working at the rock station there.
Did you ever run across Don Wallace?
Don Wallace?
He's an old DJ from years ago.
How
about Jerry Adams?
I know the name Jerry Adams. He did some television stuff there.
Yeah, Jerry Adams was DJ in Tulsa years and years ago when I was a kid, and he used to give me money all the time to help me make records.
Wow. That's
Don
pretty
Wallace
cool.
was before, that was like in maybe the 50s, 58, so that's probably before your time.
Yeah, I didn't run into him at all. How did you and Willie Nelson end up coming together?
He came to one of my shows in Houston, and then he came to the next show the next night in Albuquerque. So we just met there and kind of hooked up, and I started going to some of his shows, and he came to mine, and that was the way that started. It actually turned out that I'd played on one of his records that Joe Allison was working on. I was listening to one of his records one day, and I said, yeah, it sounds like me. And I said, me and him were listening to it, and I said, yeah, that is me. I got to looking at it, and it was an album that I'd played on that Joe Allison was producing. And Willie wasn't there. He just had the tracks, and I went in to play some piano. It kind of surprised us.
Wow. Do you still keep in touch with Willie?
Yeah, I don't see him as much as I'd like, but we did a series of two-man shows together, which is kind of interesting. I guess we did about 20, 25, maybe 30 of those. He just called me up one Tuesday and said, would you like to do a two-man show on Thursday? And I said, well, yeah. As we were walking to the stage, he was humming me songs from his new album. Saying, here, well, this one goes like this. So that was kind of fun. He's a great radio guest, one of the best I've ever seen. I snagged him, took him over to this truck stop radio station one time. I was out by that Kings Island, whatever that is, up by Cincinnati. And he's great on the radio. He's got a lot of stories.
Do you have any stories of any extreme interest for an outlaw kind of thing that you and Willie shared together during that time?
Well, one time we was together at a hotel in San Antonio, having a few drinks and looking out the window, and there's this old man down there cleaning the street. Had a brush, he's really cleaning it quite well, cleaning the building. So I wadded up a $20 bill and threw it down there, and he never did see it, so I threw a bunch more of them down there, and Willie started throwing them down there, and finally the guy found them, bent down, picked them up, and opened them up, and then he realized there's maybe about 20 more of them laying around. He picked those all up and looked at them. And when we left the building the next day, about 10 hours later, he was out there with a brush, just brushing the outside of that building. It was great.
Looking for some more cash?
Yeah, we must have made $400 or $500 of it.
Wow. Did while you were hanging out with Willie, did you run across Waylon much during that period?
Not really, except that maybe at the picnics or somewhere that I'd see. One time I played with him at the Opryland for one of those award shows, and I think Waylon was on there. Not very much. Seemed like everybody's doing different things usually.
Yeah. And you just did was it the 60th birthday bash up in Tulsa?
Yeah, that was about on the 6th of April. We just did that.
How was that?
That's great. We do that every once in a while.
You planning on going to Willie's party this year?
Yeah, he didn't have that last year, but he's having it again. I'm glad. I always reckoned that was his deal about paying back people that he reckoned helped him. He always has a lot of people there that helped him in his early years and pays a lot of money.
I think after that whole deal with the IRS, he's actually going to charge people to come in there now, though.
That could be. I don't know. I think my credit's still good, though.
You've played with members of Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Bob Dylan, Frank Sinatra. Were you just overwhelmed by some of those people, or? Well,
yeah, it was pretty overwhelming. At least the first album was doing my record over in London and the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, some of the Beatles, and this one guy that I can't think that was in Blind Faith, Stevie Winwood, was there. And a lot of those guys, that was pretty overwhelming.
What was it like working with Frank Sinatra? Did you actually work with him, or did you just do studio stuff before?
No, it's just studio stuff. I was just playing piano. The thing I remember about it, there was a California Highway Patrolman at every door in the building. That was the most striking thing about it.
And you worked with Phil Spector as part of the original Wall of Sound. What was that like?
Well, it was like bricklaying in many ways. I enjoyed doing it. This tiny room with a room that was made for about 5 or 6 people with about 25 or 26 people in it. And sometimes those things lasted for 12 or 14 hours. It's kind of grueling, but it was interesting records, interesting style of record making that he has.
What do you think of with doing the Hank Wilson stuff and kind of paying tribute to some of the early years of country? What do you think of country music today?
Well, it's not what I think of as country music, because of our racial situation in this country. There's a lot of hit records that didn't get heard back when they were hits. So a lot of times some of these country acts go back and cut these songs again, and they're like new songs to certain segments of the audience that didn't hear them when they were originally hits. But in general, I feel like the country music is not the kind of thing that I call country music. I'm kind of old-timey. I'm cutting a church album at the moment, and I had my farm manager up there listening to it, and he liked it. He said, all you need to do is get these on the radio, and people love these. I said, I'm afraid you're just kind of old-timey like me. They don't sound like one of my artists works for Word Record, and I asked her if they had anything like that, and she said, well, in the catalog or the best of, most of our stuff sounds like In Sync and all new stuff, so I kind of like the old stuff.
Has any of the artists, like you did Act Naturally, Buck Owens did, has he heard that, your version of it? Has he ever commented on it? She Thinks I Still Care, the George Jones thing. Has any of those artists ever commented on your covers of their stuff?
I've never heard the comments. If they have, they may have. I've never to me.
Did you have to go through the artist to get permission to do that, or did you just do it and say?
No, that's just a publishing consideration. Once they've been released, anybody can cut them.
What are some of the things that you're working on right now? You said you're working on the...
Well, I'm working on this church album. Actually, I wrote a bunch of songs for Ricky Skaggs, almost like bluegrass-flavored songs, and I never did get around to showing them to him. I decided I'd just go ahead and cut them, and so they're old-timey country church songs that I wrote. I mean, they're not old standards or anything like that. That's probably going to be the next thing that comes out. I just had a record come out within the week or last week called Moonlight Love Songs, which is an album of standards that I did with the Nashville Symphony, My Funny Valentine, that kind of stuff. So I try to do a bunch of different kinds of music.
How did you and Willie go about picking the songs that you recorded for One for the Road?
Well, we just all showed up over there. I kept that at my house. And at one period of time, they sent the building inspector over there with neighbors because you couldn't park anywhere in a 5-block radius of that for about 2 weeks. But he just came over with all his folks, and then there was about 30 or 40 in the audience that showed up every night. So we went in the studio and sat down and said, well, let's do this one, let's do that one. We did 126 songs in 5 days and picked out those ones that were on the album. We have about 106 more that didn't make it on that album.
Where are those at right now?
I've got them in the vault. I'm transferring my analog stuff over to digital. I think they ran across some of them the other day.
How hard would it be to talk you into getting a couple of those just to play on this show?
Well, I don't think I can do that, but one of these days we might put some more of those things out.
Wow. What are some of the songs that didn't make it on the album? Can you think offhand?
God, I can't remember what happened yesterday. So I can tell you.
Long Hair Music, the Leon Russell story. I saw it on a webpage. Is that book currently out?
I don't know what that is. I never heard of that.
Oh, okay. I was just flipping through. There were some links off of Leon Russell webpage, and it said Long Hair Music, the Leon Russell story. And,
yeah, I don't know who's the writer.
I don't have that information in front of me. I just wrote down the title of the book, but I'll have to go back and visit it. If you go into like Google.com and just type in Leon Russell, there was a bunch of links, and I just popped on there and saw that.
No, I'll have to see. I haven't heard of that.
There's a lot of stuff like that happen where things are released or people do this or do that, and you hear about it later and go, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah, that sometimes it does.
Did Laura get you the copy that I had sent for the artist IDs that I do for the show? Oh, okay. What I do is, the show is based in the 70s kind of feel with the music and everything. I try to bring a new approach to a radio show. So I don't actually host the show. I run blocker in a black Trans Am, and I do the show through a CB radio.
I see. And
I'll send you a copy of it so you kind of get a feel for it. But what I do is with the artist IDs, instead of going, hey, this is Leon Russell and you're listening to Outlaw America, I do kind of like a CB conversation where it's like, Breaker 10, Bladerunner, you got your ears on? Yeah, what's your handle? What's your 20? This is Leon Russell on Outlaw America. And that kind of, could you do something like that for me? Or?
Sure.
Okay, I'll just give you your lines.
Okay.
And then you can just repeat them, and and then I'll just splice it together with my conversation on CB. So I'll just have you do the channel that it's on is channel 10, and so if you just do Breaker 10, Bladerunner, you got your ears on?
Breaker 10, Bladerunner, you got your ears on?
Yeah, go ahead, Breaker.
My speedometer's buried. I got my sunglasses on. I'm smoking.
What's your handle and what's your 20?
This is Leon Russell talking to you. You know I'm on Outlaw America.
Oh, see, that's where I was confused. You sound an awful lot like Hank Wilson.
Yes.
What channel you on?
XM10, Outlaw America.
Copy that.
And I will let you get back to what you were doing.
I'm staring at this burger. I gotta move along. Okay, I enjoyed talking to you.
I enjoyed talking to you also. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
Bye.